Week 7 will be the second in this series in requirements to becoming a certified practicing athletic trainer. This week, we will discuss what it takes in order to practice in various states after you gain the title of certified athletic trainer. During the 1970s, the leadership of the NATA realized the necessity of obtaining some type of official recognition by other medical allied health organizations of the athletic trainer as a healthcare professional. Laws and statutes specifically governing the practice of athletic training were non-existent in most states. Today, this ongoing effort has resulted in 49 of the 50 states enacting some type of regulatory statutes governing the practice of athletic training. Rules and regulations governing the practice of athletic training vary tremendously from state to state, as you'll see here in a second. Regulation may be in the form of licensure, certification, registration, or exemption. The next few slides, we will discuss each of these regulation types in detail from most to least restrictive. Each state that has regulation is in detail in the additional material for this week. Please review this for your midterm exam next week. The most positive protection that has happened to athletic trainers since the birth of these regulations has been the passing of H.R. Bill 921 from the U.S. House of Representatives in 2016. This bill clarifies medical liability rules for licensed athletic trainers and other medical professionals, allowing them to legally treat their athletes while traveling in other states. This bill ensures that they will be deemed to have satisfied any licensure requirements of the secondary state, the traveling state, thus protecting them from litigation. This is huge for our profession, and I hope that you look more into this. The first and most restrictive and the most protective of our jobs for athletic trainers is licensure. Licensure limits the practice of athletic training to those who have met minimal requirements established by a state licensing board. Through this licensing board, the state limits the number of individuals who can perform functions related to athletic training as dictated by the Practice Act. Requirements for licensure vary from state to state, but most require a specific educational and training background, evidence of good moral character, letters of recommendation from current practitioners, and minimal acceptable performance on a licensing examination. Individuals who are providing healthcare services to an athlete cannot call themselves athletic trainers in a particular state unless they have met these requirements for licensure. To date, more than 75% of regulated states require licensure to practice athletic training. Next, certification. State certification as an athletic trainer is different than what we discussed last week. State certification does not restrict the use of the title of athletic trainer to those certified by the state. It can restrict the performance of athletic training functions to only those individuals who are state certified. State certification indicates that a person possesses the basic knowledge and skills required in the profession and has passed a certification exam. Many states that offer certification use the BOC exam as criterion for granting state certify. There are currently 5 states that regulate BS state certification. Registration means that before an individual can practice athletic training, he or she must register in that state. The individual has paid a fee for being placed on an existing list of practitioners. The state may or may not have a mechanism of assessing competency. However, registration does prevent individuals who are not registered with the state from calling themselves athletic trainers. There are currently 3 states with this form of regulation. The last form of regulation and the least restrictive for athletic trainers and the least form of protection for our jobs is exemption. Exemption means that a state recognizes that athletic trainers perform functions similar to those of licensed professionals, so i.e. physical therapists, yet allows them to practice athletic training despite the fact that they do not comply with the practice acts of other regulated professions. Meaning in these states, a physical therapist or an EMT can take a job as an athletic trainer despite not having the same education and certification. Exemption is most often used in those states in which there are not enough practitioners to warrant the formation of a state regulatory board. There are also 3 states currently with this form of regulation. In the state of Alabama, we are regulated via licensure. In order to gain licensure, you must prove you have passed the BOC exam, prove you gain continuing education through the various methods that we discussed last week, and have your supervising physician approve your practice of athletic training and that you are working ethically. There is a fee and application that must be completed and submitted to the Alabama Board of Athletic Trainers. This must happen every year, and every application must be approved by the board for you to practice athletic training in this state. In summary, regulation is necessary for the protection of athletic training jobs. Like mentioned in a few of the other slides, specifically for exemption, some states allow others to take our jobs, which becomes a problem for us certified athletic trainers, meaning that we pass the BOC exam, as this can really cut into the type of patients that we see, as well as the jobs that we are able to take. Another really important fact that you need to understand is you have to know what your state requires before you go to that state. So for example, let's say you guys pass the BOC exam, you go through the program, you pass the BOC exam, and you decide to move to South Carolina because you saw a job on there that you really like. Well, South Carolina is a certification state, whereas Alabama is a licensure state. So you need to know that information before you accept a job and move to that job. And you need to know what that state requires in order for you to actually practice athletic training. Because what you don't want to have happen is you move to a state, you accept a job, you move to that state, and then you realize that you don't agree or you don't meet the requirement for their state regulation, which in turn doesn't allow you to practice athletic training legally in that state. So you have to know this information before you move.